Hello, today I'm going to be unboxing and taking a look at the MSI Z890 Carbon Wi-Fi, which is compatible with Intel's Core Ultra processors. So let's go ahead and get it unboxed and take a closer look at it. So this is everything that comes in the box with our motherboard. So we've got some paperwork, including a quick start guide, a shout out card, we've got some cable stickers, and we've got the antenna for our Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. We've got two SATA data cables, one's got a straight connector, one's got a right angle connector. We've got some extension cables. This one's for a 12 volt non-addressable RGB header. This one is for a 3.5 volt ARGB header, and this is an extension cable for our front panel connectors. We've got an EasyCon cable, which you'll find useful to install an ARGB, PWM and USB 2.0 device using the EasyCon header on the motherboard. And we've also got an Easy M.2 clip and the tool for installing and removing it. Taking a closer look at the motherboard, working along the bottom from left to right. First of all, we've got a HD audio connector. We've then got a 12 volt 4-pin non-addressable RGB connector, followed by a supplemental PCIe power connector. Plugging a PCIe cable into this connector is completely optional, but what it does is provide additional power to our PCIe slots, ensuring that even the most power-hungry next-gen GPUs don't run out of power during power excursions. We've then got a 3.5 volt addressable RGB connector with an LED demo port just above it. Next to this, we've got a Thunderbolt 5 expansion card header, followed by a temperature sensor header. We've then got two USB 2.0 ports, followed by three system fan headers. Next to this, we've got a water flow meter connector. This connector allows you to monitor the flow rate in your liquid cooling system, and you'll find this useful if you're planning on doing a custom loop. Next to this, we've got chassis intrusion and clear CMOS jumpers, and the two pins directly above this are a safe boot jumper. We've then got our system panel header where you're going to plug in your front panel connectors, and finally at the bottom right of the motherboard we've got another 3.5 volt ARGB connector. In the row just above these connectors we've got a trusted platform module header, and just to the right of it we've got a speaker header. Again, if we look just above these headers we've got an LED switch, and turning the switch to the off position will turn off all the LEDs on the motherboard. Working up the right hand side of the motherboard, first of all we've got four SATA ports, followed by two right angled USB 5 gigabit per second Type A ports. Next to this we've got a right angled front panel Type C connector which will support speeds of up to 20 gigabits per second and 27 watt PD fast charging. Just above this we've got an EasyCon header, and you'll find this useful if you're using certain MSI fans or liquid coolers. Even if you're not planning on using these, you're going to be able to use the EasyCon cable to connect up a PWM, ARGB and USB 2.0 device to this port. Directly above this we've got our 24-pin power connector, followed by our postcode status screen, and our debug LEDs are just above this. We've then got our motherboard's third and final 3.5 volt ARGB connector, followed by another system fan header, and then at the top we've got our pump header. Working along the top of the motherboard, first of all we've got our CPU fan header, followed by two 8-pin EPS power connectors. Finally at the top left of the motherboard we've got our fifth and final system fan header. The motherboard has an 8-layer PCB and features a 20+1+1+1 power phase design, and we've got large aluminium heatsinks over the VRM connected up with a heat pipe. In the middle of the motherboard we've got our LGA 1851 socket, which is going to be compatible with Intel's Core Ultra processors. We've got 4 RAM slots, and the motherboard will accommodate up to a maximum of 256 gigabytes of DDR5 at up to 9200 megatransfers per second overclocked. We've got 3x16 size PCIe slots on the motherboard, and it's good to see that our top two slots are reinforced. These are our Gen 5 slots with the PCIe lanes coming from the CPU. The top slot will run in by 16 mode, while the middle slot supports by 8 mode. Our bottom slot is a PCIe Gen 4x4 slot with the PCIe lanes coming from the chipset. Installing and removing your graphics card from the top slot is going to be really straightforward using the Easy PCIe Release button. The motherboard has 5 M.2 slots. There's 1 behind the top heatsink and 4 behind the bottom heatsink. Our top slot is a Gen 5x4 slot, whereas the bottom 4 slots are Gen 4x4 slots. The PCIe lanes for the top 2 slots come from the CPU, whereas the PCIe lanes for the bottom 3 slots come from the chipset. No matter which of the slots you decide to install your M.2 SSD in, the process for installing it is going to be completely toolless. Taking a look at our rear I/O, first of all we've got a HDMI 2.1 port, and then we've got 3 USB Type-C ports. The top 2 ports are Thunderbolt 4 ports, and they will support speeds of up to 40 gigabits per second as well as DisplayPort 2.1, and they will provide 15-watt charging. While the bottom Type-C port is a 10 gigabit per second port. The 10 red USB Type-A ports will support speeds of 10 gigabits per second. In the middle we've got 3 buttons. The top one is a BIOS flashback button, the middle one is a clear CMOS button, and the bottom one is a smart button. Out of the box, the smart button is programmed to reset the system, but it is possible to change the function of this in the BIOS to either turn the lighting on and off, provide safe boot functionality, or to turn on turbofan mode, allowing you to synchronize all the fans to either full speed or default speed. In terms of networking, we've got both 2.5 and 5 gigabit Ethernet ports, and we've got the antenna points for our Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. At the bottom of the motherboard, we've got our audio connectors, which consists of spinif out, mic in, and line out. The audio codec is the Realtek ALC 1220p, and the motherboard will support 7.1 channel HD audio. So I think this is a really good looking motherboard, jam-packed with all the features you're going to need for a high-end build. In terms of pricing, I have found it on sale today for just under £460 in the UK. So we'll hopefully get this into a build on the channel fairly soon. If you have enjoyed this unboxing overview, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well.